Welcome to English Mind Shift. Let me ask you something quietly. Have you ever seen someone who never rushes, never argues, and never tries to impress, yet people still take them seriously? They speak less, but their words matter more. They stay calm, even when others feel emotional. And somehow, they always seem one step ahead. This is not confidence alone, and it is not intelligence in the usual sense. It is awareness. More than 500 years ago, a thinker named Niccolò Machiavelli studied people without illusion. He did not imagine how humans should behave. He observed how they actually behave. Fear, desire, power, image, and emotion guided most decisions then, and they still do today. If Machiavelli were alive in the modern world, he would not argue on social media or chase attention. He would understand people deeply and move quietly. While others reacted emotionally, he would observe. While others rushed, he would wait. And by doing so, he would outsmart almost everyone. In this video, you will learn English naturally while exploring 11 psychological rules Machiavelli would use today. Listen slowly, absorb the ideas, and allow both your English and your awareness to grow. This is English Mind Shift. Rule 1. Never show your full hand. Machiavelli understood a simple but uncomfortable truth about people. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to control. When others can clearly see what you think, what you feel, and what you plan to do next, they stop respecting your presence and start managing you instead. This is why Machiavelli would never reveal everything at once. He believed that mystery creates psychological space, and psychological space creates power. If Machiavelli were alive today, he would speak only when his words add value. He would answer questions calmly, but not completely. He would share enough to seem cooperative, but never enough to become transparent. This does not mean lying. It means choosing what to reveal and what to keep private. Silence, in this sense, is not weakness. It is control. In daily life, people often overshare because they want approval or understanding. Machiavelli would avoid this mistake. He knew that explaining yourself too much reduces your authority. When you allow others to wonder, they pay more attention. When they pay attention, they take you seriously. Outsmarting others does not require clever words. Sometimes, it only requires knowing when not to speak. Rule 2. Control how others feel around you. Machiavelli believed that people do not remember facts for long, but they never forget how you made them feel. If he wanted to outsmart others, he would not focus on proving his intelligence. Instead, he would focus on shaping the emotional atmosphere around him. Calm people create safety. Confident people create direction. Unstable people create discomfort. Machiavelli understood that emotions spread silently, and whoever controls the emotional tone of a situation holds invisible power. If Machiavelli entered a room full of tension, he would not add to it. He would slow the pace. He would speak clearly and calmly. This would make others unconsciously adjust their behavior to match his rhythm. When someone becomes emotional or aggressive, most people react emotionally in return. Machiavelli would do the opposite. By staying steady, he would make the other person feel exposed, as if their emotions were too loud. Over time, people would associate his presence with balance and control. This rule matters deeply in modern life. In workplaces, families, and social spaces, people are constantly reacting instead of responding. Machiavelli would never rush into emotional responses. He would pause, observe, and choose his tone carefully. A soft voice during conflict can feel more powerful than a loud one. A calm response to pressure can make others question their own reactions. People naturally look for emotional leaders, not logical ones. They want to feel safe, understood, and grounded. Machiavelli knew this and used it wisely. He would allow others to speak first, express their emotions, and even reveal their weaknesses. While they talked, he listened. While they reacted, he remained still. This contrast alone would shift the power dynamic. To outsmart others does not mean controlling their actions. It means influencing their emotional state without force. When people feel calmer around you, they trust you. When they trust you, they follow you. And when they follow you, you lead without ever announcing it. Rule 3. Let others reveal themselves. First, Machiavelli believed that most people expose their true nature when they feel safe enough to speak freely. If he wanted to understand someone, he would not rush to share his own opinions. Instead, he would create space for the other person to talk. Silence, when used patiently, becomes a mirror. People project their thoughts, fears, ambitions, and insecurities onto it, without realizing what they are doing. In conversations, many people speak quickly because they are afraid of silence. Machiavelli would welcome silence. He understood that when a person fills the quiet, they often reveal more than they intended. Small comments, emotional reactions, or repeated themes in their speech quietly expose what matters most to them. While others talk, Machiavelli listens not only to words, but also to tone, speed, and emotional shifts. In modern life, this rule is powerful. At work, in friendships, or even online discussions, the person who speaks the least often learns the most. Machiavelli would ask simple, open-ended questions and then step back. He would observe how others react to pressure, disagreement, or praise. These moments reveal character far more clearly than long explanations ever could. By letting others show who they are first, Machiavelli protected himself from unnecessary conflict and false trust. He gathered information quietly while giving away very little. Outsmarting others, in his view, was not about dominating conversations. It was about understanding people deeply before making a single move. Rule 4. Appear agreeable while thinking independently. Machiavelli understood that open resistance often creates enemies faster than it creates change. If he disagreed with someone, he would rarely show it immediately. Instead, he would appear calm, reasonable, and cooperative on the surface, while maintaining complete independence in his thinking. This approach allowed him to stay close to power without becoming a target. People feel threatened when they sense opposition. Machiavelli avoided this by listening carefully and acknowledging others' views, even when he did not fully accept them. A simple nod, a thoughtful pause, or a neutral response can lower defenses. When people feel heard, they stop guarding themselves, and that is when they become easier to understand. In modern situations, this rule is often misunderstood. Being agreeable does not mean being weak or dishonest. It means choosing strategy over ego. Machiavelli would never waste energy trying to win every argument. He knew that most arguments are emotional, not logical. By staying outwardly calm and flexible, he gained time to observe, plan, and decide his next move. Thinking independently is an inner discipline. Machiavelli separated his inner judgment from his outer behavior. He could stand in a group, appear aligned, and still think critically. This balance protected him from unnecessary conflict while preserving his freedom of thought. Outsmarting others does not always require confrontation. Sometimes it requires patience, restraint, and the ability to let others believe they are leading, while you quietly understand the situation more clearly than they do. Rule 5. Understand motivation before action. Machiavelli believed that every human action is driven by motivation, even when people themselves are not aware of it. If he wanted to outsmart others, he would never focus only on what people say or do. He would focus on why they act the way they do. Behind every decision lies a desire for security, recognition, power, comfort, or approval. Once you understand that desire, behavior becomes predictable. Most people judge actions too quickly. They label others as good, bad, loyal, or dishonest, without understanding the deeper reason behind their behavior. Machiavelli avoided this mistake. He observed patterns over time. He watched how people behaved when they felt threatened, praised, ignored, or challenged. These moments reveal true motivation more clearly than polite conversation ever could. In modern life, this rule is extremely useful. At work, someone may appear helpful, but their real motivation could be recognition or control. In friendships, kindness may come from genuine care or from fear of abandonment. Machiavelli would not criticize these motivations. He simply acknowledged them. Understanding motivation allowed him to predict reactions before they happened. Machiavelli also applied this rule to himself. He questioned his own motives before acting. Was he speaking to help or to impress? Was he disagreeing to protect truth or to protect ego? This self-awareness kept him from acting impulsively. Outsmarting others begins with understanding yourself first. When you understand motivation, you stop being surprised by people. You stop taking behavior personally. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond strategically. Machiavelli knew that people can change their words easily, but their motivations remain stable. By focusing on what drives people internally, he stayed several steps ahead, not through manipulation, but through clarity and psychological insight. Rule 6. Master timing, not speed. Machiavelli understood that acting too quickly often reveals insecurity. Many people rush to speak, decide, or respond because silence makes them uncomfortable. Machiavelli saw timing as a quiet form of intelligence. He believed that the right action at the wrong time can be more damaging than no action at all. Outsmarting others, in his view, was not about being faster. It was about being precise. He observed that situations naturally change. Emotions rise and fall. Power shifts subtly. A decision made in anger rarely produces respect, and a decision made too early often lacks information. Machiavelli waited. He allowed events to unfold, giving people time to reveal their intentions. While others rushed forward, he stayed still, gathering clarity. In modern life, this rule is deeply relevant. In conversations, responding immediately can lock you into a position you may later regret. In conflicts, silence can allow tension to dissolve on its own. Machiavelli would often delay his response, not to avoid responsibility, but to gain perspective. This pause made his eventual actions feel deliberate and strong. Timing also creates psychological impact. When someone speaks at the right moment, their words carry more weight. Machiavelli knew that a calm, well-timed statement could influence a room more than long explanations delivered too early. By waiting, he allowed anticipation to build. Mastering timing requires emotional discipline. It means resisting the urge to prove yourself quickly. Machiavelli trusted that clarity grows with patience. By acting only when the moment was right, he avoided unnecessary mistakes and made his decisions appear inevitable. This quiet control over timing allowed him to stay ahead, not by force, but by wisdom. Rule 7. Never depend on being liked. Machiavelli understood something that many people struggled to accept. Being liked is unstable, but being respected is durable. If he tried to outsmart everyone by seeking approval, he would fail quickly. People's likes change with mood, benefit, and circumstance. Respect, however, grows from consistency, boundaries, and self-control. Machiavelli chose respect over popularity every time. He noticed that people who try too hard to be liked often compromise themselves. They say yes when they mean no. They soften their opinions to avoid discomfort. Over time, others stop taking them seriously. Machiavelli avoided this trap. He remained polite, calm, and composed, but he did not shape his behavior around pleasing others. This emotional independence made him harder to manipulate. In modern life, this rule matters more than ever. Social media has trained people to chase approval through reactions, comments, and validation. Machiavelli would see this as a weakness. When your confidence depends on others' reactions, you lose control over your own behavior. You start performing instead of thinking. Machiavelli stayed grounded by trusting his judgment rather than public opinion. This does not mean being cold or cruel. Machiavelli understood the value of kindness, but he never used kindness as a way to beg for acceptance. He treated people fairly, yet maintained clear boundaries. When people sensed that he did not need their approval, they instinctively respected him more. Emotional self-sufficiency creates quiet authority. Outsmarting others does not require charm alone. It requires inner stability. Machiavelli knew that when you stop needing to be liked, you start acting more clearly. Your words become deliberate. Your decisions become firm. And your presence becomes heavier. Not because you demand attention, but because you are no longer controlled by the fear of losing it. Rule 8. Protect your reputation carefully. Machiavelli believed that reputation is a form of silent power. It speaks for you before you ever enter a room. If your reputation is weak, people question your intentions. If your reputation is unstable, people test your limits. Machiavelli understood that once a reputation is damaged, it is difficult to repair. That is why he treated it with great care, not emotionally, but strategically. He knew that people do not judge you by your private thoughts, but by repeated behavior they can observe. One strong action does not define you, and one mistake rarely ruins you. What matters is pattern. Machiavelli paid close attention to consistency. He acted in ways that aligned with the image he wanted others to hold, even when no one was watching. This consistency created trust, and trust created influence. In modern life, reputation spreads faster than ever. A single comment, decision, or reaction can be remembered longer than you expect. Machiavelli would be highly aware of this. He would choose his words carefully, especially in public settings. He would avoid unnecessary conflicts, emotional outbursts, or impulsive behavior that could weaken how others perceive him. Silence, again, would be one of his strongest tools. Machiavelli also understood that reputation does not mean perfection. Trying to appear flawless often creates suspicion. Instead, he allowed himself to appear human, but never unreliable. People can forgive mistakes, but they struggle to forgive unpredictability. By remaining steady under pressure, he built a reputation for control and clarity. Protecting your reputation does not mean living in fear of judgment. It means understanding that perception shapes opportunity. Machiavelli would not waste energy correcting every misunderstanding. He focused on long-term behavior rather than short-term approval. Over time, this approach allowed others to define him through observation rather than rumor. Outsmarting others, in this sense, is not about hiding who you are. It is about being intentional. When your actions speak calmly and consistently, your reputation becomes an ally. It opens doors quietly, shields you from unnecessary challenges, and gives your presence weight without you ever needing to demand it. Rule 9. Stay emotionally unattached to outcomes. Machiavelli understood that emotional attachment weakens judgment. When people care too deeply about a specific outcome, they begin to lose clarity. Fear of loss, desire for success, or need for control starts guiding their decisions instead of reason. Machiavelli trained himself to stay emotionally steady, even when the situation mattered. This inner distance allowed him to think clearly, while others became reactive. He noticed that people reveal their weakness when outcomes control their emotions. They become impatient, defensive, or desperate. Machiavelli avoided this state. He focused on the process rather than the result. By doing what was necessary in the present moment without clinging to a particular ending, he stayed flexible. Flexibility, for him, was a form of strength. In modern life, emotional attachment often shows up in subtle ways. People fear losing status, relationships, or approval. Because of this fear, they overreact to small problems or rush decisions. Machiavelli would pause instead. He would accept that not every situation can be controlled. By releasing emotional grip, he gained strategic freedom. This does not mean he lacked ambition or care. It means he refused to let emotions cloud his thinking. When something did not go as planned, he adjusted rather than resisted. This calm adaptability made him difficult to defeat. Others exhausted themselves fighting reality, while Machiavelli worked with it. Staying emotionally unattached also protected him from manipulation. When people sensed they could not provoke him or pressure him through fear, they lost leverage. Machiavelli remained centered regardless of praise or criticism. His stability unsettled those who relied on emotional tactics. Outsmarting others does not require emotional coldness. It requires emotional discipline. Machiavelli knew that when you stop clinging to outcomes, you start seeing options. You respond instead of react. You move with clarity instead of force. In a world driven by urgency and emotion, this calm detachment quietly places you several steps ahead. Rule 10. Make others feel responsible for their own choices. Machiavelli understood that direct control often creates resistance. When people feel forced, they push back, even if the decision benefits them. True influence, in his view, was subtle. Instead of giving orders or demanding obedience, he allowed others to feel that their actions were their own choices. This removed resentment and increased commitment. He noticed that people protect decisions more strongly when they believe those decisions came from themselves. Machiavelli used this psychological tendency carefully. He would present options rather than commands, suggestions rather than demands. By guiding conversations in a certain direction, he allowed others to arrive at conclusions on their own. When they did, they felt ownership, not pressure. In modern life, this rule is extremely effective. At work, people resist being told what to do, but they cooperate when they feel involved. In relationships, advice feels controlling, but questions feel supportive. Machiavelli would ask calm, thoughtful questions that led others to reflect. Instead of saying, "You should do this," he would say, "What do you think will happen if you choose that?" This small shift changes everything. This approach also protected Machiavelli from blame. When people choose freely, they accept the outcome more easily. If things go wrong, they reflect instead of attacking. Machiavelli did not need to defend himself aggressively because he rarely positioned himself as the direct cause. His influence worked quietly in the background. Importantly, this rule does not mean avoiding responsibility altogether. Machiavelli accepted responsibility when necessary, but he did not absorb unnecessary emotional weight for others' decisions. He respected people enough to let them face the consequences of their own choices. This built maturity and reduced dependency. Outsmarting others, in this sense, is not about control through force. It is about guidance through understanding. When people feel free, they cooperate more deeply. When they feel respected, they trust more easily. Machiavelli used this insight to lead without resistance, influence without conflict, and remain powerful without appearing dominant. Rule 11. Always see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Machiavelli believed that self-deception is one of the greatest weaknesses a person can have. Many people do not struggle because they lack intelligence or effort. They struggle because they see the world through hope, fear, or comfort instead of truth. Machiavelli trained himself to observe reality clearly, even when it was uncomfortable. This clarity allowed him to act wisely, while others acted based on illusion. He noticed that people often expect fairness from unfair situations, loyalty from unstable people, or gratitude from those who benefit silently. Machiavelli did not rely on such expectations. He judged people by their actions, not by their promises or words. When someone showed inconsistency, he accepted it as information, not as a personal betrayal. This emotional realism protected him from repeated disappointment. In modern life, this rule is essential. Many conflicts arise because people hold unrealistic expectations. They believe effort will always be rewarded, kindness will always be returned, or honesty will always be appreciated. Machiavelli would see these beliefs as dangerous when applied blindly. He understood that reality does not operate on moral wishes. It operates on incentives, pressures, and circumstances. Seeing reality clearly does not mean becoming cynical or bitter. Machiavelli was not pessimistic. He was realistic. He believed that once you understand how people and systems truly work, you gain freedom. You stop wasting energy fighting what cannot be changed. Instead, you focus on what can be influenced. This rule also applied inward. Machiavelli examined his own weaknesses honestly. He did not hide from his fears or pretend to be more virtuous than he was. This self-awareness made him adaptable. When a strategy failed, he adjusted, instead of blaming fate or others. Outsmarting others, in Machiavelli's view, begins with outsmarting your own illusions. When you accept reality as it is, you stop reacting emotionally to disappointment. You respond intelligently to circumstances. You make fewer mistakes, trust more carefully, and move with intention. In a world where many people escape into fantasy, denial, or hope without action, the person who sees clearly stands apart. Machiavelli's greatest advantage was not manipulation. It was perception. By facing reality calmly and honestly, he stayed grounded, strategic, and quietly ahead of everyone else. Final reflection. The quiet intelligence of Machiavelli is often misunderstood as someone who taught people how to deceive or dominate others. But when we look deeper, a different picture appears. What he truly mastered was awareness. He observed people carefully, accepted human nature honestly, and learned how to move through the world without unnecessary conflict. His intelligence was not loud. It was calm, patient, and deeply realistic. The 11 rules you explored in this video are not about becoming manipulative or cold. They are about becoming conscious. Machiavelli would outsmart others not by fighting them, but by understanding them. He listened more than he spoke. He controlled his emotions instead of letting emotions control him. He respected reality, timing, and human motivation. These skills are just as powerful today as they were centuries ago. As you listened, you were not only learning psychology, you were also learning English in a natural way. When language is connected to ideas, reflection, and meaning, it stays with you longer. That is the purpose of English Mind Shift. This channel is not about rushing grammar or memorizing words. It is about learning English slowly, clearly, and thoughtfully, through psychology, awareness, and real human behavior. When you understand ideas like these, your English grows together with your mindset. You begin to think in the language, not just translate it. That is how real learning happens. If this video made you think, pause, or see things differently, then the mind shift has already begun. Stay curious, stay calm, and keep learning, one clear thought at a time, here on English Mindshift.